As noted, the term Reach Nechorach, in addition to Vayikra 1:9, is to be found 37 times in the Chamisha Chumshei Torah, which would suggest that the Reach Nechorach component was to be an integral part of the Korban process. Majority of the present-day translators render the Reach Nechorach LaHashem as a pleasing aroma or fragrance to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which, on the surface at least, suggests that man, through bringing the Korban, provides a degree of satisfaction and pleasure to God. This concept, as we shall see, is untenable within Yahadut, one which is rejected by Rashi in his commentary to the Reach Nechorach LaHashem in Vayikra 1:9, when he writes that the Korban is a nachat ruach lefanai sha'amarti v'na'aseh retzoni. However one understands the pleasure that God receives from the Korban, it is not the actual smelling of the smoke arising from the Mizbeach, but rather that the Nachat Ruach that God receives comes from man's compliance and abiding by the wishes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In doing so, Rashi draws a distinction between the role of sacrifice in ancient Judaic practice to that of sacrifice as practiced within the pagan religions. The textual basis for the distinction between Judaic and pagan sacrificial rites is noted in footnote number 7. Footnote number 7 points us to Tehillim Perek 50. The lead up to Perek 50 is a series of Perakim in which Tehillim 42 to 48 describes the relationship of Bnei Yisrael to other nations. Tehillim 49 has a message for all of mankind, leading into Tehillim 50. The Mizmor LaAsaf searches the inner life of Bnei Yisrael, in particular the attitude of Bnei Yisrael to the divine law. Shima ami v'adabeira, Yisrael va'idabach, to which Hirsch, in his commentary, placing into the mouth of God the fact that what I'm about to say has particularly serious bearing upon you, I shall testify against you as regards your function as Yisrael, as a nation upon which I have called upon to proclaim my sovereignty. Of course, this was Shimshon Raphael Hirsch interpreting a religious text for the Jewish community as of the mid-1800s. God says, I will not reprove you for your sacrifices. In other words, you have given me no cause for complaint, for you carry out the minutiae of sacrifices to the letter of the law. What I will have a complaint about is the fact that you have failed to realize sufficiently that the purpose of these offerings which I expect you to bring is not simply the ceremonial act itself. I personally have no need for the meat for the ox or the goat, because as creator of the world, every beast of the forest and the cattle upon 1,000 hills are mine. Im erav lo omalach, you must not believe that you have afforded me pleasure by the mere execution of the sacrificial ceremony, for if I were to take pleasure in the animals slaughtered upon my altars, then I would certainly not need to rely upon your generosity to afford myself such satisfaction, as was the case with respect to pagan worship, that the primitive mindset believed that the deities delight in the animal sacrifices themselves. For everything that man has fenced off for himself, everything that lives and breathes in the far-flung reaches of nature is mine. Hence, there is no added value to me with the offering of the sacrifice. And this is the point that Rashi is making with his commentary to Reach Nechorach LaHashem, that it is not the actual Korban itself that brings pleasure to God, but rather the fact that the body language of the Korban is an expression of compliance to the wishes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And, I might add, a commentary not limited to the sacrificial rite, but to the performance of mitzvot in general.